Joel, you recently took a trip to Armenia, and in light of everything that has gone on in Nagorno-Karabakh, I would love to hear about that trip. What was it like?
It was really sobering. We got to go to the almost the very south of the country, and we were able to drive right up to the beginning of the road that's been blockaded by Azerbaijani soldiers. So we could see the road stretching off into the distance, empty, no traffic going along it. And we were able to meet some Armenian Christian families that were forced to flee their homes when Azerbaijan attacked their homeland 3 years ago. We got to hear their stories and see the not very good conditions they're living in now as displaced people. But while we were there, the night before we got there, Azerbaijani soldiers made a small incursion and captured like 100 hectares of land, and all the sides were on full military alert, and we could see military trucks rolling by all the time, and we thought maybe something will happen. Nothing happened while we were there, but 2 weeks to the day after we were there, Azerbaijan bombed the village where we were and killed 4 people, and our local partners had to go there and evacuate the families that we had met to keep them safe. So it's extremely tense and extremely worrisome.
I mean, this has been going on for months now. We have covered it repeatedly, and you have come on and you've shared with us to hear that you went and you saw. I mean, one of the things we've talked about, this claim that the road is not being blocked, right, by Azerbaijan, the claim that it's not being blocked, that traffic can move freely. And, you were there, you saw it, you said the road was empty. What was it like? Because you know that those things aren't true, right? Those claims that are being made, but to actually go there and see it and to experience those conditions and to hear the stories, what was that like for you as a human being outside of the work that you do?
Mm-hmm. It's really infuriating, actually, because the Armenians feel very alone and very forgotten, and they're seeing that Azerbaijan, this really dreadful dictatorship that stirs up hatred against them, racial hatred, religious hatred, is able to do pretty much anything that it wants. And they're really, really stuck right now. They don't know if they're going to be able to stay in their homeland. They don't know if their nation is going to survive. And especially to hear Armenians say, we feel so abandoned by the Christian world, really. We understand why the governments of the world don't pay very much attention to us, but why is the church not paying any attention to what's happening to us now? It was very sobering.
That's convicting and sobering. And I know that we've talked over the past few months about resources, right? Baby formula, vegetables, food. With the road being closed and closed off, people not being able to get in and out for medical care. How much worse is it now than it was months? I mean, we were talking about this January, February, March. Now here we are inching toward the end of April. What are the conditions right now inside Nagorno-Karabakh?
It's pretty bad. In some ways, the Armenians have found ways around the blockade. They've been able, for instance, to get some supplies through the Red Cross. So they've avoided like total starvation. And now that the weather is getting warmer a little bit, they're starting to plant crops again. But as they find a way around, Azerbaijan responds. So we've seen a whole lot of sniper attacks on farmers who are trying to grow food inside the blockaded region. So you can't bring food in from the outside, really, not very much. And you can't grow it where you are. We just had a report this morning that there are 2 people stuck at the blockaded road. The Red Cross is trying to bring them to Armenia for medical treatment, but Azerbaijan is not letting them through. One is a woman who's in the very last stages of her pregnancy, and the other is a 9-year-old child with really, really advanced leukemia. So it's quite grim. Since the beginning of the blockade, the local health authorities in the blockaded region have postponed over 1,000 surgeries because they just don't have the medicines that they need to perform these surgeries safely. And we just got word today that the pressure is now so great that they're going to restart the surgeries because these people can't wait anymore. And they're just kind of hoping that the medical supplies will hold out long enough for a change in the situation.
I mean, that is incredibly heartbreaking. And you're also coming off of, and I don't know what the effects are, but I know what they are here in the US, of COVID, with all of the medical restrictions and things that happen with that. you're coming off of that. It's almost adding insult to injury now, where there already probably weren't enough resources to begin with if this hadn't even happened. What should the world be doing? We've talked about this in the past, but right now, in light of the fact this has stretched on so long and the need is so dire, what should world leaders be doing and what can believers be doing?
Well, almost every government who's interested in this region has said on the record the blockade has to end. Azerbaijan has to stop the blockade. And Armenia even took Azerbaijan to the International Court of Justice and sued them. And the International Court of Justice was unanimous. Azerbaijan must end the blockade. And nothing has happened. So the world leaders need to decide whether they're going to be allowed to be mocked like this, essentially. The US especially has a lot of levers they could pull with Azerbaijan. The US provides military aid to Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan needs to have a good relationship with the US and with Europe and with the UK. And the US needs to decide, are they going to stand aside and watch one of the oldest Christian communities in the world be destroyed by a corrupt dictatorship, or are they going to do something about this? Right now in Congress, there's been a resolution just introduced called HR 320 that would recognize this blockaded region as a free, independent country, and that condemns the blockade and demands sanctions on some of Azerbaijan's leaders who have masterminded this blockade, which is really a slow ethnic cleansing of Christians. So if you as believers are concerned about this in your audience, please write to your congressman, your congresswoman, and say, I'm a Christian. I'm worried about my Christian brothers and sisters in Armenia. Please support HR 320.
And that, you know, I will say you've seen more politicians start to speak about it here in America. You're seeing it, but it's a slow bubble, right? I mean, it's taken time for this to really break through. And even not seeing a lot of other outlets covering it, you know, that's something, you know, we've wanted to be on this and talk about it because it's important. And it's, you know, a lot of things happen in the news. The news moves fast, right? But that doesn't mean just because the news has moved on or isn't covering something that this isn't horrific. And so I'm glad that we're able to talk about it. I want to talk about one other issue, which would be Nigeria. And we've talked, you and I, about Nigeria quite a bit in the past, the violence going on there, the targeting of Christians there, the horrific stoning that we've covered in the past there that happened early last year. There was an election in February of this year. Take us through what was startling about that presidential election for you in light of the past.
So Nigeria became a democracy in the year 2000, after many decades of military rule by northern Muslim military rulers. And when they made the transition to democracy, they had kind of an informal custom that if the president was a Christian, the vice president would be a Muslim. And if the president was a Muslim, the vice president would be a Christian. And if you had one Christian president, the one who came after would be a Muslim. This was not written down anywhere, but this was just kind of a tradition that everyone understood and everyone honored to make sure all the communities in Nigeria felt safe and felt represented. We're coming off of 8 years of having a Muslim president in Nigeria, and the man who won the election just now in March is a Muslim, and his vice president is a Muslim. So the Nigerian political establishment has completely thrown this arrangement out the window at a time when violence against Christians in Nigeria has never been higher, when Christians in Nigeria's Middle Belt region are being systematically driven out of their villages. The month after the election saw something like 130 Christian villagers killed in a state called Kaduna, which is really on the front lines of all this fighting. So all of the indicators are negative right now.
Yeah, what do you anticipate? I mean, we've seen, and it's really sad to me that this had to become an international story essentially because of a stoning, right? I mean, people were talking about it, but not the way that event of that college student, that stoning, that really made people say, what in the world is going on here? But yet again, like many other stories, it sort of wanes and goes out of the headlines. And we've kept up on all of the things that are happening because you hear a story almost every week. And I know there's more than that going on. What do you anticipate happens from here to Christians there? Because again, and we've talked about this as well, this is a country that has a lot of Christians in it. It is not a country where it's just a very small percentage of Christians, right?
Right. Right, and it's a very big country, so it might take a while for Christians in the deep south, that's majority Christian, to really feel the effects of this. But in the middle belt, in the center of the country, I can very well see an acceleration of attacks on Christian villages to the point where it becomes impossible for Christians to live there. And this place that used to be home to hundreds of different Christian groups is just 100% Muslim. And all of these people have been internally displaced. They've lost their homes. They've lost their homeland. And once the Middle Belt goes, then 2 out of 3 regions, big regions in Nigeria, will be controlled by the Muslim elites. So the Christians in the south are going to find themselves very lonely in this new political arrangement. Yeah.
It is incredibly heartbreaking, and I think it's so easy for a lot of people, and a lot of Christians in particular, to not understand or realize the level of persecution that is going on around the world. We're only talking about 2 instances in this conversation. Obviously, your organization, Christian Solidarity International, deals with this all over the world. How can people come alongside your organization to help people in Nigeria, to help people in Armenia? What are some ways they can do that?
Yeah, I would encourage people to visit our website. It's www.csi-usa.org. There you can sign up for our email newsletters. You'll get regular updates on things that you can be praying for in the world. CSI is on the ground in 14 different countries, helping persecuted Christians with material aid, with legal aid, with food, with medicine. You can donate to those efforts if you so wish, if you feel so led. And yeah, I would say engage with us, engage with the resources that we put on the website, and contact your congressman. Tell them, I'm following what's happening to the Christians in Armenia. I'm following what's happening to the Christians in Nigeria. And I'd like you to do that too.
Well, I so appreciate your time. As always, we're going to have you back very soon for more updates on these important stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.